Welcome in, Mr. Marc Broussard.
Thanks for having me, Brady.
Of course, taking some time out of your busy day to come speak with us, folks, because you got a big show tonight. Thalia Hall.
Yeah, back in Chicago, my favorite big city in the country.
Yes.
You got to try to have a bad meal in this town.
It's impossible.
It's pretty virtually impossible.
Like the worst meal you have in Chicago is the best meal in just about any other city.
You're damn right. I mean, look, I come from South Louisiana. I think we have some pretty good food down there as well, but I love visiting this city.
Okay, so talking about where you're from, I spent some time in New Orleans, like most people do when they're being tourists. And there's a song you have, Y'all Ain't Ready, right? Talking about alligator soup. Have you literally had alligator soup? Have you made this? Is this something you've tasted?
I think it's the lyric is alligator boots, but I have eaten alligator
And
fried
thoughts?
alligator. It's like chicken.
It is not like chicken.
It's pretty much
It
like
is
chicken.
gamey. I had a night out, and then apparently I woke up in the morning. This is like years ago, and I'm like, what is that taste in my mouth? And my buddy goes, "Bro, you ate a gator po' boy at like 1:30 in the morning." I was like, "That's right, I did do that."
That sounds like a pretty standard visit to New Orleans.
Yeah. Well, anyways, welcome to Chicago, man. I got to be honest. I was listening to your stuff, and you took me to the Marc Broussard Church.
Oh, come on, man.
Like, this was like, not saying like there's a lot of music that sucks, but there's a lot of music that sucks. This is music. This is your sound. I love the sound. I'm a guy. You know, everybody knows somebody like this that says, "What kind of music do you like?" I like everything. I'm that, right?
Sure.
And it's good listening to you because your music is everything, right?
Yeah, my records have over the years have tended to be a little schizophrenic because my tastes are very wide. But this new record is probably the most coherent project I've put together so far.
Awesome. This is SOS4 you're talking.
No. This is a brand new record called Time is a Thief.
Which is the song,
Yeah.
right? That's from the single, okay. And why do you think this is so different than anything else that you've done?
Well, first and foremost, my co-writing partner and producer, he's got a very distinctive sound when he writes and when he plays. And so his fingerprints are all over this thing as much as mine are. And I think that lent itself well to the project having a more coherent feel. The SOS projects they're all covers albums that we use to raise money for charity. And those tend to be pretty coherent as well. We generally pick a theme that kind of aligns with the charity that we're trying to raise money for. But my original albums, again, it's just because my tastes vary so greatly. My influences span the gamut from Stevie Wonder to James Taylor, and there's a lot in between there. And so if I'm left to my own devices for writing, it just tends to come out a little scatterbrained. So I liked having a co-writer that kind of kept us in between the guardrails.
So people are listening to your music right now, like as we speak, right? Which is, I'm not an artist. That would blow my mind just thinking that. What do you picture them doing? Like what kind of mood, what kind of vibe, where are they? What are they doing when they're listening to Marc Broussard music?
They're dancing with somebody that they love in the kitchen or in the living room.
Good.
That's what I want to see happen, I like making music that brings families together. One of my favorite stories ever was down in Columbia, South Carolina, probably 15 years ago. After the show, I'm at the merch table, and this guy comes up, and he's wearing a suit, and he's got his tie loosened up, and he's got his arm around a kid who's got, giant gauges in his ears and tatted up everywhere. And the guy says, "This is my son. He just made 18. We haven't spoken for the last decade after I left his mother, but your music brought us back together." Those are the kind of stories that really fuel my tank.
It's got chills.
Yeah,
It's funny you said that, too, because I was listening to Love and Happiness, and what I was picturing is literally like a newlywed couple.
Mm-hmm.
They just bought their first house.
Yeah.
And it's like a Sunday morning. Like the eggs are cooking. They're listening to your songs. Life is so good. Do you thrive on that positivity and that vibe?
Oh, yeah. I'll give you another story. We were playing a small venue in Los Angeles about a decade ago, and my tour manager before the show says, "Hey, there's a guy who's in a wheelchair. He wants to meet you." I said, "Sure, tell him to come after sound check." So we finish up sound check, and in the back door comes this guy in a wheelchair being pushed by a gal, and he says, "A year ago, I was sucker punched outside of a bar here in Los Angeles, and I was put into a coma for 30 days. The doctors told my family it was time to pull the plug. And on day 30, they were going to pull the plug when she walks in with a stereo and puts on Your Song Home. And for the first time in a month, I started showing signs of cognition. I started tapping my finger and mouthing the words.
Whew.
That was a heavy one, man. That gave me fuel for a long time. Still to this day it does.
Yeah, I'm gonna not ask you the question at the end of the interview what you want your legacy to be because it's happened.
Yeah, no
Dude,
doubt.
that is such a crazy story.
It was pretty crazy.
The power of music.
No doubt about it, man.
What
I've worked with Alzheimer's patients a bunch, and music is definitely something that is deeply resonant in the brain somewhere. Mm-hmm. We make very firm connections with music.
Yeah, we remember every single lyric to Blackstreet No Diggity from 30 years ago, but what the hell did I have for breakfast yesterday? I have no clue. It's so true.
Correct.
What was there a big break story, or was it like a struggle? How did it go for you getting to where you are recording albums and the whole thing?
It was there was a lady that had made her bones in the music business. She was an independent radio promoter from my hometown, but had lived on the West Coast for a long time and had some success in indie promo. And she had just come back to Lafayette to open up a sushi restaurant, the first sushi restaurant in my hometown.
Sure.
And all of her employees were telling her that I was playing down the road and she should go see me. She missed my set. She showed up late. I pulled her out to the parking lot, played 3 songs for her. She gave me a phone number, said, call me Monday. Call her on Monday. She says, I'm flying you to Los Angeles. I landed in L.A. for the first time on January 27th, 2002. And she had the kind of stroke where she could just call up the label's president and get an interview right then and there. She would call up Lenny Warnaker or Tom Whalley or Gary Gersh on the way to their offices, and they would say, yeah, come on over. Nobody bit, though, on that trip, so I came home. She put together a record label for me. We put out my first record, but by the time that first record dropped in September of 2002, I had gotten management out of New York, and Island Def Jam was interested in signing me. So I didn't really have necessarily a big break per se, although Maroon 5 gave me a great opportunity to open for them on their first big tour back in 2003 and 2004. So touring with those guys was definitely a huge boost for me. I got a lot of fans from those tours. Doing 9 shows with Bonnie Raitt back in 2008 was another incredible experience. Sure. And then working with Joe Bonamassa on SOS4 and on a brand new record that's not out yet. It'll be out later this year. Joe's generosity has been through the roof, and I couldn't be more grateful.
Wow. So you were the young guy under the wings of like a Bonnie Raitt, just starting up, going on these tours, being the opening act. And Maroon 5, they weren't like veterans at that point, but they were pretty established. They had some radio hits.
Sure.
Is there anybody you've worked with over the years who's kind of been like supporting your stuff and then you've seen them, or maybe you worked with them a little bit in the studio or maybe at a festival and now you're like, something's up with this artist. They're going to be something. Man.
Sarah Bareilles was an opener for me before I was an opener for her.
You flip-flop.
Yeah.
Love Song is a great jam.
It's a great song, and the story behind it is great, too. Her label president, I think it was, told her that she needed to write a hit song. And so she wrote, I'm not going to write you a love song just because you asked for it. Turns out to be her biggest first hit.
I would say these things don't write themselves, but literally they do.
Yeah.
At this point.
No doubt.
She's a great one. That's a great one. Yeah, that's very cool.
She's a doll. Brandy Carlisle was another one that opened for me.
Yeah, we've heard of her.
Before I opened for her.
Yep.
There have been a number of artists that have gone on to do big things after supporting me on tour.
I love that. Talk about the struggles of the industry a little bit, because we see everything, especially now on Instagram with everybody's lives, it's perfect and there's filters and nothing's real. What about the struggles of music? Because it's a grind early on.
I've sort of came in with the last class of the previous era. I came into the industry right as things were transitioning. I think, in fact, my record label, Island Def Jam, gave me my first ever iPod back in 2004 or whatever it was. So seeing that transition happen in real time has been very interesting. And I think, for one thing that really helped us was getting serious about content creation about a decade ago. We spent a good amount of money to get things up and running, but once that got up and running, the YouTube page kind of became a self-driving promotional engine.
There.
But really coming up with concepts to try and create content, it's a lot of mental work, and it's definitely something that I spend a lot of time on. What we found that works best for us is just performance videos. So there's not a ton extra that needs to go into it.
Which is good because that doesn't require a lot of extra work.
Exactly, exactly. Throw the cameras up, get some really good players in there, and everything tends to work out. But, making sure that you sustain the demand for content it's a task. Because music has never been more in demand than it is right now, but the payouts have never been lower. So we've managed to reduce production costs by as much as we can possibly reduce them, as close to zero as possible, to keep things going. But it can be a struggle.
Yeah.
I'm very blessed, though. I've been able to play music full time for the last 20 plus years. And I really can't complain. I've got a good life.
It's funny because I've also have been on both sides, pre-streaming and post, in this industry as well. Part of me really misses the other way.
Oh yeah.
Mainly because I grew up with it, and that's when I became passionate about music in general. But man, there was something so special about going to the record store, buying the CD for like $25, which was a fortune back then. Getting home, having one hell of a time ripping off the plastic, and then you get to open it up. You can smell it, and then you play the CD and you read the lyrics.
Yeah,
that I think is one of the most missing elements of music that fans don't get to experience these days.
Yeah, I agree. I think the record buying experience of old is definitely preferable to the streaming. For me. But, at the same time, it is really convenient to have the entire world's, battery of music at your fingertips. It's very nice.
Yeah.
Spotify, I think, is a company that unfortunately has set the standards, and those standards are going to be very difficult to be broken.
Yeah. How would you rate your career as a whole? It's been a long career. You've done a lot of things. You've seen a lot of people. You've met a lot of fans. What would you say is how would you sum up your career to this point?
I would say I'm very pleased with how things have gone. I'm not a household name, but I get to play music. There are several hundred to several thousand people that immediately erupt in applause when I show up to do my job, which is kind of wild to think about. There's only us and athletes that really get to the benefit of feeling what that feels like. Right. I could still walk down Main Street Disney World without, TMZ coming and hounding me and my family. Perfect. So it's kind of I'm kind of perfect. I'm glad that I stayed in Louisiana and didn't move to an industry town and rub elbows with the folks that are in front of the cameras. I like my little niche.
Yeah.
And I'm very happy with staying right there.
What is a show that you remember being young, going to see, and being on the other side of the crowd, being part of the thousands or hundreds screaming?
I went to see Boys to Men.
Let's go. Come on.
Yeah.
Really High Harmony.
Yeah. It was 98 Degrees open for them, and they crushed. It was an absolutely stunning show by 98 Degrees. And then Boys to Men, it was on the 2 tour, and they all came up out of the stage in these tubes, and one of the guys got stuck in the tube. It was not the best show I've ever seen. But
what a memory.
I still love Boys to Men.
Hell yeah. Water runs dry. Come on.
No doubt.
What are you most proud of? I mean, probably the stories you told earlier.
Yeah. I think working with Bonnie, being able to sing with Bonnie every night on tour was probably the highlight of my career. There's another really cool moment. I got to perform for the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame induction ceremony back in 2007 alongside Solomon Burke and Leela James. We were paying tribute to Wilson Pickett. And it was just, it's when you're standing in front of that room.
Surreal.
It's very surreal. I took a pee next to Ozzy, and I got a hug from Sting and high five Metallica, and it was a hell of a night.
That's so fun. That's so fun. What do you have left? What is it? What is it you want to accomplish? Do you set goals for yourself, or do you just kind of like wake up and today's my goal?
I want a beach house. That's what's next.
Okay.
Yeah.
Where any particular beach?
The Panhandle of Florida.
Yeah.
Anywhere between Pensacola and Panama City.
Right on.
Just fine for me.
So you've never moved out of Louisiana, or you have?
No,
you
never.
just stayed home.
Mm-hmm.
I love that.
Yeah. In fact,
That's
the only
rare.
time I've lived on the same street for 39 out of the 43 years I've been on Earth.
Come on.
Yeah, my parents are right across the street,
That is amazing.
and I lived my whole youth life on that street.
Yeah.
I moved away for about 2 years after high school,
Mm.
and then spent another year or two living in various rental houses with my wife. But we bought a house on the street I grew up on.
Phenomenal.
Yeah, we're not planning on leaving.
And then last one. Anybody new you're digging? Anybody you've seen over the past couple of years that you got your eye on, artist-wise?
Yeah, the Brothers Landreth out of Winnipeg, Manitoba.
Not familiar
are
with them.
Incredible,
Okay.
man. Absolutely stunning. Joey Landreth is one of the finest guitar players out there, and his voice is butter.
Landreth. Okay.
Emily King is also another artist that I really love.
Mhm.
Foy Vance, he's originally from Ireland. He's a brilliant singer. I probably would, if I could choose what song to be playing when I lose consciousness, it would be Foy Vance's Burden.
My man, dude, thank you for sharing all these awesome stories, and congrats on an amazing career so far, and continued success, and crush it tonight in Chicago. Go get some, what do you like, the deep dish, the Chicago dogs, the
Paisanos.
steaks? Oh, Paisanos, great pick. You didn't go the touristy traditional Giordano's. It's a good pick.
Yeah,
So
I like
that's the move.
Paisanos.
That's the move. Thanks for coming in, my man.
Thank
Appreciate
you,
it.
brother.